Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome back to the Viking Update Show starring John Krasinski and I already blew it. Starting over 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Viking Update Show with John Krasinski and Jim Suhan. This is one of our many football shows at TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you through the Aquarius Home Services Studio, and we're presented to you by Onyx Hunt. If you like this show or any of our many shows at TalkNorth.com, including the John Krasinski Show, we just had our playoff preview show over there, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way to listen, and we do appreciate it. So I thought we'd go philosophical here as we're getting very close to the draft. Thieneman is still the most mocked player to the Vikings. He makes a lot of sense. Looks like a really good player. Looks like a good fit for Flores. But it's also speculation, John. We know that when you pick 18, I covered the 98 draft. They had Chris Carter and Jake Reed. Randy Moss was a top 1 talent in that draft. There's no reason for him to go to 21. And if he went to 21, why would the Vikings be the team that picked him? And guess what happened? So let's not pretend that things are just going to go chalk all the way down. They're going to take Thieneman and nothing else is going to happen. They could trade up, they could trade down, whatever. So I don't like pretending. I don't like doing the whole mock draft thing. Mm-hmm. What I do think can be valuable here, you've been covering sports for a long time. You've covered a million drafts in different sports. I've been covering sports for much longer than you, and I've covered a million drafts in a bunch of different sports. Let's talk philosophically here. I almost said it right. Because I'll start here. I think it's really interesting in this division to see what other teams have done when they really needed to have a good draft. And let's start with the Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes is really good at this stuff. He has built an excellent roster, top to bottom, and it appears his philosophy is as simple as take a good player.
Yes.
Not
great,
you have to get
idea.
this. Not you have to get this. Not you can only draft this position. Not this position has to be much more valued than this position. Not you have to build this, base and then build. I think so many people in sports, because these decisions are so important and so hyper-analyzed, so critiqued, I think a lot of people almost feel like they have to have a philosophy they can fall back on that allows them to defend whatever their approach is. And Brad Holmes is like, I don't care if he's a running back. He's Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm taking him. I don't care if he's a linebacker. I don't care if he's an interior linebacker and nobody else wants interior linebackers this high. This guy can play. And if I get a good player with every high pick I have, eventually all the positions are going to work out just fine. I really think, I really just love the simplicity of his approach, because how often do we see a team take somebody almost because they feel like they have to take him instead of because they just want that player on their team?
Yeah, I do think that that Brad Holmes' approach is refreshingly devoid of, how would I say it? Refreshingly devoid of concern for what other people think. And that it can be, in this day and age, I think it's harder than ever to not be influenced by the quants, by the analytics, by all of the supposed experts out there. And there are many of them that are very good at what they do and that present very real data that backs up all of their very real draft takes. But I do think that sometimes folks in that line of the industry try to make things overly complicated to justify all of the intelligence and all of the research that they do and everything to make whoever is consuming the product that you're producing, believe that that you are much, much smarter than them, and that there are secrets to this thing that have to be uncovered through backbreaking, number crunching to get to where you want. And there is a right and a wrong answer. And what Brad Holmes does is say, no, that is not the case, and I am going to stick to my principles because they have worked and they will continue to work. And I am not going to get caught up in, well, you're not supposed to take a linebacker here, or you're not supposed to take a safety here. I'm going to make sure that I get talent across the board, and that over the course of several years in an NFL kind of lifespan, you are going to see this roster turn over so often that you're going to need a linebacker here. You're going to need an interior offensive lineman here. You're going to need this and that. And so it's just, I think it's a very sound and very simple approach that some people would be reluctant to take because they don't want it to seem that simple. They don't want it to be like, no, this is all you have to do is find the guy that you really like and then take him. And if you believe in him. And so, because if it were that simple, then there's a lot more people that could do it. And I think a lot of folks in the league, and then a lot of people in like the draft intelligentsia, try to make this out to be this incredibly complicated thing that you could never understand. And so that's why they have the jobs and you don't.
Brad Holmes said earlier this week, whatever his press conference was, he said, one of the many reasons drafting for need is a mistake is that your needs change every year. You know, I mean, let's say the Vikings, let's say a potential Hall of Fame offensive tackle fell to them at 18. You take the Hall of Fame offensive tackle. Does he fit on this roster? No. But you don't know that Darrisaw's going to stay healthy. You don't know O'Neal's going to stay healthy. You don't know how much longer O'Neal's going to be in his prime or playing well. You could always move somebody inside for a year or two. It's much better to have the great player and adapt around having a great player than take Demetrius Underwood and have you drafted for need and you didn't fill that need.
Yes, I think that's the point that a lot of people often overlook is, okay, you took a potential shutdown corner here at 11 because you need a shutdown corner. But if that player is not good enough to get on the field, you still have that need. And so, if you took a tight end and you have Hawkinson, you have a few others right now, you may not need one right now, but maybe in a few months you do, or maybe in a year you do. And wouldn't it be better if once you have that need, you are plugging in an ultra talented player that is ready to go right away? I mean, we can talk about the Moss draft, and of course, like those are anomalies for
sure.
the great one of the greatest players of his generation to slide all the way down there. But
hey, Justin Jefferson slid to like 22.
That's a great point.
It can happen.
Yes, it can. It absolutely can happen. And I certainly still remember when they took him, and that was like 1 year before I started to get around the team and started to do some work on it. But then I got there the next year in 99, and I mean, it's the same thing with Percy Harvin. Like, it's the same thing with Adrian Peterson when they had Chester Taylor. Like, when you get onto a field in a training camp setting, and then you look at that guy and you say, he's different than anyone else. Like, he is different than anyone else. And you can see those types of players at linebacker. You can see him at safety. You can see him at tight end. You can see him all over. And so you want to accumulate as many of those players that when you're just watching, you're like, man, that guy's bigger and faster and stronger than anyone else here. And even if you don't need him right now, you are going to need him pretty quickly. And so, I mean, that's what Brad Holmes has done. That he has one of the most talented rosters in the league because he just keeps taking super talented players and then they figure out a way to fit them in, or by attrition or natural selection, it just happens. And lo and behold, you are not a terrible team anymore. You are, the most talented team top to bottom in the league, in the division, and you're in the conversation for playoffs and championships and all of those things. I mean, it's just, I just really do respect how he goes about his business. And because, the other part about this, Jim, is even every single general manager who is going to do a pre-draft availability with the media is going to come out and say, best player available, best player available. That's what we do. That's what we do. But then when the moment of truth hits and you are on the clock and there is a player at one position that you don't need right now that is much more talented than the player at a position that you really, really need, so many of those guys are not going to be able to pull the trigger on the one that you don't need, because they all think, man, we're only one player away. And if this guy works out, then we're set. And that's just where they get burned time and time again.
Yeah, I was really lucky when I first started covering the Vikings to spend a lot of time around Jerry Reichow and Frank Gilliam. And back then, as you know, much smaller media contingent. It was really just the beat writers who kind of had the run of the place. And I could just go sit in their office and talk for hours with those guys, and sometimes with the scouts, but mostly with just those guys. And they were legends. They were great at what they did, and they just didn't care what anybody else thought. Mm-hmm. They just didn't care at all. Mm-hmm. They thought it was funny that other people had draft opinions. Because here they are putting in thousands of hours, and they have their best scouts putting in thousands of hours, and somebody on the radio says something, contradictory to what they're doing, and they would just chuckle. They'd be like, that's kind of funny. And, I think about one of their best draft choices ever, an undersized guard, I think it was Arizona State.
Yep, Arizona State.
Who had a very funny way of lining up, where he bent his knee in a way that every coach would tell him, never bend your knee like that when you're lining up. You'll have no power or quickness. And Randall McDaniel, I say this a lot, Randall McDaniel is probably the player I have watched in my lifetime in the NFL who came the closest to going undefeated. Mm-hmm. It's hard to, I'm not going to say he's better than Barry Sanders. Right. It's really hard to compare different positions, but in terms of winning his assignment on an every down basis, I think Randall McDaniel was as close to perfect as I've ever seen. And, how many people got excited about the Vikings drafting an undersized guard that they hadn't heard of in the first round?
Yeah. And I can't remember. He was down a little bit, right? It wasn't like a top 10 pick. He was.
No, I'm going to look him up now we're thinking about it. I didn't. Yeah.
It is funny. Like, I will say, like, I want to say that draft may have been the first one that I remember really kind of watching. And I remember my father was just big into Randall McDaniel somehow. And so when he came around and they drafted him, we were excited. We had no idea what we were talking about or doing, but like, we were excited. But yes, it was rare to say, oh my gosh, they went and got this guard to come in, let's get super excited about it. Cause I think a year or two before that was DJ Dozier up high, the running back from Penn State, super sexy pick, didn't work out at all. But here's kind of what I would say is, like, I will give every sort of executive scout, draft preparer within teams right now. I'm going to say that it is harder than ever for teams to not be influenced by the outside, by the draft experts and stuff, because first of all, like, there are guys who, really put tons and tons of work into this. They are really well versed in the players and they really get to know them, but also their information is so readily available now that owners and owners' sons and lawyers within the teams, like, they read all of this stuff and they say, oh man, this guy seems really smart and he says we got to take this guy. And so one of the things that modern day front offices have to have ready when they make their picks is not what they say to us in the media or to fans, is what do they say to their owners about, here's what we're doing, here's why this guy is wrong, or here's why this talent evaluator, this, NFL draft Nick is wrong and what he's missing. And so more and more people nowadays believe that they are educated on this subject. And so there is just a lot more pressures that surround these guys to stick to their guns. That can be a very hard thing to do. I will absolutely grant that.
No doubt about it. All right, I have another philosophical topic to bring up here in a second. I do want to let you know that we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
When your furnace, air conditioner, or thermostat isn't working right, you need a local team you can trust. Whether your home won't heat up, won't cool down, or your air quality is a concern, your home comfort team at Aquarius Home Services finds the problem fast and fixes it right. And you get $98 off any furnace or AC repair when you book with Aquarius today. Aquarius Home Services. One call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com.
I also want to tell you about Onyx Maps, which includes Onyx Hunt and Onyx Fish. The app does the scouting work so you don't have to. Species distribution data, proven fishing areas, historical survey data from state DNRs. Onyx Fish aggregates all of it into one place so you're not piecing together 3-year-old forum posts. It's a planning tool and a navigation tool, offline maps, turn by turn to the boat ramp, public, private land layers. Onyx has been doing this for hunters for years, and now it's built for anglers. It's $34.99 for the year, less than a spool of good braid. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onyxmaps.com/fish and fish smarter this season. I find it hilarious that we are talking about the Vikings having all those quarterback problems last year, and they're going to a draft where they have more picks they've had in a long time, and it feels like one of the more important drafts they've ever had, and the one position we know they're not going to take is quarterback.
It is, yeah. And, Jim, what if in the 4th round, there's a quarterback that they really like that slid down? I don't know. Do you do it? Do you take the proverbial bite at the apple one more time just to see what you got? There is a theory out there, and there are some GMs that will tell you we should take a quarterback every single year, no matter what, just to see if you hit on the Tom Brady or whatever it is. And so I don't know what the right answer is there. Maybe not the 4th round. I don't know, but I do not expect them to take one. I don't know that they should, but should they? I'm not sure.
My gut says no.
Mm-hmm.
The logical part of my brain that just went through all this on talking about other positions says if he's the best player.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to the 4th round and the best player on your draft board is a quarterback and you really like him,
mm-hmm.
You're not just bringing in somebody to be your third quarterback because they don't need a third quarterback right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you like him here's the thing. If you can watch the guy and say, this guy could start for us someday, then you have to take him.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you look at him and say, well, this guy could be a backup in 4 years, well, you can find a backup a million other ways. I'd say no. But if your evaluators say this guy could start for you in 3 or 4 years, then you have to take him.
Well, and just getting back to our conversation earlier, Jim, they technically don't need a quarterback right now, but they very well could
Mm-hmm.
need one very soon. What if Kyler Murray has a great year and goes and signs somewhere else? Or what if he has just a middling year and you don't really know what to do with him? Maybe some other team, throws a little bit more money at him, a la what Seattle did with Sam Darnold, and now you're out Kyler Murray. And maybe J.J. McCarthy continues to stagnate and doesn't take the next steps to say, yeah, we don't know he's ready for another shot at the starting job. And so we're not really good. We don't want to go that way. Then all of a sudden, both those guys are not options anymore, and you need a quarterback. And so, is there a likelihood that you would find someone in the 4th, 5th, 6th round that you groom and you say, yeah, in 2 years or 3 years, he's going to be ready to be our starting quarterback and not just be a starting quarterback in the league, but a really good one? No, it's not there. But to say right now, when you don't have a Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, type of a player as, at quarterback that is good, Patrick Mahomes that is going to be here and be your guy for the next 10 years, I mean, you might have to look at it. You just might have to. If someone, again, like we are saying, if someone slides down and you're in that spot and you're like, man, this guy could be something someday, I don't know. Maybe you'd have to take a look at that.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to evaluation. Yeah. Okay. Let's wrap up this year's draft preview. Maybe we'll do another show next week before the draft. We'll see how next week plays out. Maybe we'll wait until after the draft. Again, you've covered a lot of general managers, a lot of draft people. I have also. I'm going to give you my favorite draft story, and then I'll let you think about your favorite draft story you might want to share, scouting story, whatever it is. So I'm covering the Vikings, and I developed some sources around the league. One of them was a former Super Bowl winning general manager. For some reason, we hit it off, just like you do with NBA sources, and we went back and forth a lot. So big draft is coming up. And I called him and said, hey, I'm doing my mock draft. You want in on this? He said, oh, yeah, I'll tell you what my mock draft is. Mm-hmm. He read me his mock draft. And, of course, I'm typing it out as we go. I said, I'm going to protect him. But, it was fun to have it, put it next to my mock draft. Mm-hmm. And, again, I had other sources, too. So I talked to a lot of people around the league. I did my own mock draft. I have his sitting there, just curious how he's going to do. And I swear to God, neither of us got any right that year. Neither of us. And you know why? Because there were trades.
Yeah.
There were like 3 trades at the top of the draft, and that maybe you could have predicted, but we didn't predict, and it threw everything off. And of course, we would have been wrong on some of these anyway, even if there hadn't been any trades. So you combine the ones we would have gotten wrong to begin with the trades throwing off the sequencing toward the top of the draft. Neither of us got any right. That's my mock draft, my proud mock draft story.
That's amazing and entirely believable with how all of this can play out. I find it fascinating. Dane Brugler is the Athletics draft wonk, and he's amazing. Like, he publishes this document called The Beast every year. That's literally hundreds and hundreds of pages of breakdowns and mock drafts and all of these things. And the closer he gets to the draft, the more he updates the mock that he does. He includes trades that he thinks are going to make that are going to be made, and my gosh, like, that just adds a degree of difficulty to the whole thing that, I mean, I can't even imagine trying to figure that out or trying to project. I'll just say, like, I remember, my sort of draft stories are when I was a kid, and I'm talking 7th, 8th, 9th grade. I could not get enough of the NFL draft, and I would sit in my house and watch from start to finish the whole weekend. And I would jot down every pick, because this was pre-internet where you couldn't just go to the computer and have them just, print off the players who were picked and everything. I wrote down every single pick in this notebook. And it was whatever it was 30 hours of television over the weekend. I would tell all my friends, no, I can't do anything. I'm sitting here and I'm watching the draft. And I remember, like, as the draft would go on and you get 15 minutes in the first round, and then 10 and 5, and then it goes, and ESPN would stop televising every single pick and then having Mel Kiper break them all down, and they would go to conversations about other league events, and I would get so mad. I'm just like, just give me the picks. Like, all I want is the analysis. I was such a draft nerd that I just, it was my favorite thing in the world. And I have since matured and evolved a little bit, and so I still really enjoy these weekends, and I love seeing how everything comes together, and I love trying to, like, put together the pieces of why did someone get picked here, why did someone get picked there. But that was kind of the highlight of my young journalism career, of just getting into this, was like, once I got into, like, the draft, things to cover for the Vikings, like, and people would come up and sit at the podium and we'd get to talk to them and ask questions about why you did stuff, and they would openly lie to our faces about what it was. I mean, I could not, I was in heaven. Like, wait, what do you mean? Like, I'm just going to be able to ask why this happened and get the answer to it, versus like all of the speculation and things I would do in my own head, like while I was just watching at home. It was Shangri-La, man. It was just the best thing of all time. And yeah, I still enjoy doing it. As I've gotten older, I've gotten people that I can trust and talk to and have actually real conversations that will give me some sort of real insight and information. And that's only gotten better. But those days of sitting at home and having a plate of nachos and writing everything down and breaking it all down, and oh man, the Colts made a great pick here, or like there's that. Like, I mean, it was like, that's the best thing of my youth, just in following sports.
Ryan Leaf's going to be great.
So I was a Peyton Manning guy. I will say that.
Okay.
And one of my buddies, his friend, or my buddy's father, it was kind of like really good guy, very much a know-it-all-y guy. And we got into...
Those are two different things, John.
Yes.
Two different things.
Yes. We got into a tooth and nail fight just about... He loved Ryan Leaf and he loved his strong arm, and he didn't like how Peyton Manning tiptoed in the pocket, and you're wrong for this. And so I held that over his head for 20 years. Like, every time I would see him, like, hey, how's Ryan Leaf panned out? How's Peyton Manning? Yeah. So like, yeah, that was the kind of stuff that fueled my middle school and high school years, was just like debating this stuff to no end. But I was a Peyton guy over a Leaf guy. I'll take that.
It's amazing how many mistakes have been made in the NFL. Big, expensive mistakes over arm strength.
Yep. That's right.
And, Joe Montana couldn't throw the ball 50 yards downfield.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning was not athletic and could not, and he could zip the ball, but he didn't have Ryan Leaf's arm. Jamarcus Russell, huge arm. Yeah. It's amazing how often NFL teams think that you got to throw the ball through a wall.
Well, and I remember too, Jim, remember Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson, he was like an Ohio State defensive lineman, went number 1 overall because he might have been 315 pounds or 300 pounds, and he ran a 4.77 40.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was just like blown away by it. Like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And even me at the time, but like others, when is a defensive tackle going to have to run 40 yards? Like, what are we doing here? Like, those are the kinds of things. But you get enamored by physical attributes and by the thought of coaching them up and developing them. And sometimes, the Mike Mamulas of the world and the Dan Wilkinsons, you're like, man,
Tony Mandarich.
Yep. And a bunch of those guys. And then meanwhile, yes, the Randall McDaniels of the world, who do things a little weird, who might not be the physical specimen, just turn out to be all-time players. Tom Brady and Joe Montana and all these guys who just can think the game and can see it and know it. Like, they run circles around these big, strong dudes.
Good stuff. Thanks to everyone who listens. Check out the Jeff Diamond Show with the former Vikings general manager, Jeff Diamond's Vikings NFL Insider. Check out Alec Lewis's show. He actually has multiple shows a week for us. Check it all out. We do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.